Hey guys, Buckeye Bar guys. We wanted to thank you guys for tuning in to us here on Buckeye Bar Talk. Great show we got coming up today. We're really looking forward to you guys listening and watching it. But just wanted to remind everybody, just remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the all notifications bell, that way anytime a new show comes up, you guys will be alerted to it. And don't forget to like the video and comment on the video. All interactions with us helps us continue to grow, and we appreciate your support. Now to the show. Welcome back, everybody. Buckeye Bar guys here on Buckeye Bar Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm John.
Today's date is Saturday, August 14th, and we are 19 days from the opener of the Ohio State Buckeyes versus Minnesota Golden Gophers. So getting pretty psyched.
Hell yeah.
We're moving now. We're in the stretch. We're seeing it. It's been having some great practice reports going on. So looking forward to this season because sounds like there's a lot of good things happening down in Columbus. So we got a big show today, a lot to go over because something we're going to start with here got added into the show from yesterday, late in the day.
Oh my goodness.
Actually in the evening when it first came out. So it was so at first we said, well, I think it's too early to really say anything about it because I don't know if these are just rumors or not. And then it got confirmed by multiple media sources. So it's like, well, I guess we should say something about it because,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's some talks right now in the works between the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and the ACC to create some sort of scheduling alliance or whatever between all three of the conferences to basically the kind of it seems like it's like kind of a check against the SEC. You're not the only power conference here, so we're going to do this. And there's some talks that, by doing this, that everybody kind of knows that there's going to be a playoff expansion here at some point. That was really picking up steam until the Texas-Oklahoma announcement, and then it kind of got pulled back a little bit. But now it seems like it's going to start picking up steam again. Basically, a lot of it seems like that they don't want ESPN having all the rights to all the playoffs. Yep. And this would be kind of a way to guarantee it that by having an alliance on the other side of it. So kind of interesting. Just what's your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly what it sounds like is they don't want ESPN and SEC to have all the power in college football. And you can't blame anybody for, that being their stance. So, the way I read it, which I don't know exactly what it means, they said like, it's going to be more than just a scheduling alliance. So I don't know if that's like conference realignment that they're going to try to, create a conference that will now compete with what the SEC is going to be with Oklahoma and Texas joining them. I don't know what it means, but it sounds like they're trying to get, the majority of the college football conferences and voices together to kind of, veto block SEC and ESPN from having all control.
Yeah, so
try to distribute where, your playoff games and where all your rights are going to be with college football, that they don't want it just to be at one place.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting. Some other interesting stuff's been thrown out there. I don't know how much we really want to go down those rabbit holes. It's a lot of what we've talked about in the past about.
It's all, it's speculative right now. So I don't think it's really much. We did a whole, go back to our first couple episodes. We did a whole series on what a dream super conference, a new college football league would be for us. So, it kind of sounds like that might be the way it's heading, but it's all speculative right now.
As of right now, it definitely seems like the one things that we can confirm is that these three conferences now are talking as a whole, to create something that would at least be in a kind of a compatible, thing with the SEC. It's not that I don't think it's necessarily it's not we're going to destroy the SEC, F them for doing this. So, I think in a lot of people's mindsets, it seems like Ohio State possibly might be a leader kind of with this, that it's to, just make sure the power teams that are right now outside of the SEC still have a voice. And this is probably kind of the best way to do that.
Well, and kind of to go piggyback off of that statement, I think a lot of what this is Ohio State saying like, hey, we're not going to be left behind in college football, but we're also not going to have a gun held to our head that we have to join the SEC.
Yeah. So
we still have power, and, we'll start getting our own thing together. And that way to, keep a balance of power, that the SEC doesn't have all the power, and they can't just say, hey, if you want to keep moving forward with college football, you have to join our conference.
Yeah. So, that's interesting. So I think we'll have a lot more to talk about along those lines. But we're still in the midst of fall camp right now. So yeah. I'm not spending a lot of time on it because, like we said, there's a lot of speculation to what's going to happen, what's not going to happen, all that stuff.
Until more comes out, there's just not really too much to talk about right now. But it sounds like it could be fast moving, just like Oklahoma, Texas was.
Well, you think about, just real quick, you think about it. I think the Notre Dame's, because supposedly Notre Dame is in some of these talks too. They to be in this alliance that if I think their TV deal ends in 2 or 3 years. So I think their TV ends in 25. So there's some stuff. I don't know if I think the Big Ten media stuff is coming up here in the next couple of years too. I don't, and they might have renegotiated. I don't want to say something. I can't remember if they've done an extension or already passed the next contract, or if
I don't remember,
still negotiating it or what. But so there's some stuff that's I think it would come faster than it's gonna. You kind of would want to have, if Texas and Oklahoma, if they do wait their full time and wait till 2025, that it's still coming up a lot faster than people think. We're literally 4 months till 2022. So,
right.
That stuff, years seems like it moves a lot faster than a lot of people think they do at times.
Right. Yeah.
So, it'll be 2025 before you know it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
even in this crazy COVID world that we're living in right now, it'll be 2025 before we know it.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's move on to
before we get into the press conferences. Let us remind everybody that the Golden Arm is showing up. What we heard is showing up at practice today. That he won't be a part of the scrimmage, but Quinn Ewers should be on campus today. If not tomorrow, they said he's definitely he'll be there. He's ready to be ready for Monday. So
yeah, so. It'll be, I think it's going to be, I think it'll be a crazy couple days for, I think Buckeye stuff. Quinn Ewers will be ready for practice Monday, but I also have a feeling that on Monday too, we will be getting the announcement of who the starting quarterback for the season is, or who's the true leader right now. After today's scrimmage,
we got a scrimmage today, so they should start kind of wrapping that stuff up.
Yeah. Day said it would be probably a couple weeks. He even said that he thinks, he kind of did some coach speak afterwards. He had a press conference earlier week, which we're not really going to get into today's press conference. We're going to focus more on the position coaches. But he did say that, we should know going into next week, but maybe it'll be another week. And then he threw that out there. But I think when he has his early week press conference this week, we're probably, I don't know if it's going to be like CJ Stroud is definitely the starter for Minnesota, but I could see, CJ Stroud is the leader and he's taking the first team reps.
Sure, yeah.
Or Kyle McCord or whoever. I think everybody's assuming from what we're hearing that it's going to be CJ Stroud.
It sounds like Stroud's
having a pretty good. He's doing very, very well. And
yeah, it sounds like he's getting the first reps over anyway. And who knows what that means, but I just assume it's him.
Yeah. All right, so we had a few position coaches did some quick press conferences this week. So basically we had Al Washington, Kevin Wilson, talked about the tight ends and the offense as a whole. And then we had Stud also. Stud was actually the first, but we're going to do him last just because I think we want to talk a little bit about some of those the possible new O-line formation that, was kind of a rumor last weekend, but it seems like it's after now pictures now have come out and videotapes and they've talked about it, that's more of a legit possibility now. So
yeah, after you and I, we do a projection of what the O-line is going to look like. And then they come out and say they're going to start all tackles. So
yeah, so we'll get into that there in a minute. So, all right. So Al Washington, again, on these press conferences, sometimes it's very hard to hear the question because this is how they have it set up. I wish Ohio State would change that and at least give the media guys microphones that at least kind of remember, they're kind of doing it for TV too. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, it is what it is. So, I mean, Al Washington, if you just kind of read him behind the lines, and to me, he sounds pretty giddy and that he's pretty excited. I mean, he's a pretty straight talker.
Yeah.
And, but there's not a lot of, I mean, they all have coach speak to a point, but he doesn't seem like he has a lot of coach speak that, he kind of tells you how he thinks it is.
And he'll tell you when he's not answering a question too.
Yeah.
He'll say straight up, I'm not going to answer that right now.
Yeah. It seems like, I mean, he's very excited. It sounds like, with Taraja, Gant, and Kayvon. He said they've been in the program for a long time. They know what they're doing. It's just going out and proving it now. And so it sounds like that he is pretty happy with them taking now that's going to be kind of their room. And, they got a lot of good guys behind them, but, it's kind of them pushing it forward. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing them play more of those three. It just seems like that was such a great recruiting class to getting those three.
I know.
And I mean, they were all 5 and high 4-stars.
They were all 4-star linebackers. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
I think Mitchell was a 5-star at one point in the process and then might have dropped a little.
Yeah.
But
that sounds about right. I know. I thought he was a high 5 or 4-star, excuse me. Yeah, I don't remember who was a higher out of Pope and Gant. I don't.
Yeah. They were all way up there. I mean, I know there was one of the best recruiting linebacker classes that
it was very exciting
that we've had in a while, and so
and then the likes of Tough Borland kept them off the field.
Yeah, so.
I'll leave that.
But yeah, no, I'm pumped up to see how they are now. Are they ready to contribute? And it does, and they talk about this in the press conference. It does speak a lot to their character, and that's what he said. And that they never did transfer. None of them, they wanted to stay, and which kind of does speak a lot of volumes. I would assume the way college football is. I mean, I know there wasn't the one transfer rule, but I mean, there's been kind of an unofficial one transfer rule now for a
couple years,
since pretty much Justin Fields. That it seems like everybody has gotten that waiver to go. And start immediately. That there's been very, very few exceptions that if you think about it, that these guys didn't just leave.
Mm-hmm. No. Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for the guys. I think Taraja's, I think he's a thumper. I think Gant's going to be a thumper too. I mean, those are going to be your two inside backers. Kayvon Pope. I mean, and the thing is, you hear so much, throughout the last couple of weeks. I mean, you hear about other guys like Cody Simon. And of course, we could talk about him in a little bit.
We will. And Eichenberg, we've heard a lot
and,
about.
I mean, Al had glowing remarks about Pele Neoteote, which they just got to get that guy in the field because it sounds like he's healthy and they're loving what he's doing. But the one that's like, it's always like, well, Taraja and Gant are going to be your starters, and then you're going to have the bullet. I mean, I feel like Al Washington talked about Kayvon Pope more than anybody in that press conference.
And it seemed like just kind of reading between the lines is Pope could be kind of maybe if they use a bigger version of the bullet at different.
Oh yeah, an athletic outside backer. Yeah,
he's good. He's just as much in a possibility for that position as anybody else.
I mean, he glowing remarks about how athletic Kayvon Pope is.
From listening to his press conference, it definitely seems like the bullet is a thing. I mean, we know the bullet is a thing this year. We've heard it from enough people that there is going to be the bullet's going to be used a lot more this year than it's ever been.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But we've been hearing a lot of different things. There's still going to be a lot of situational football. And I think this is about this team across the whole field. Basically, in my opinion, they're going to figure out their quarterback, and you're going to have your set offensive line. And then outside of that, there's probably going to be a lot of heavy rotations throughout every other position group because you just got too many talent. I mean, you got 3 deep on almost every spot. I mean, you're talking about, you're hearing things about Eichenberg and Simon, Kayvon Pope, and, then you throw in the couple bullets, Ronnie Hickman and, Court and
Craig Young.
And it's like, and then they have so many different guys that they could go at those positions. And it's like, they're talking about glowing remarks about all of them. And yet it seems like pretty consistently that Mitchell and Gant are the starters.
Right.
So it seems like they have a whole rotational mind and thought process that every one of these guys are going to play here at some point.
Yeah. And I still, Well, we'll talk about linebackers next week, where we think everyone's going to end up lining up, because that'll be. We might have to do linebackers and DBs together.
Yeah, we'll do those two positions together, because today will just be D-line. But
yeah, I mean, you're just hearing so many good things about everyone. You just hope everyone stays healthy, because you keep that depth. You hope, Pele, that he gets that waiver, that he can play immediately, because that guy sounds like he's going to be a contributor right away. And maybe it's just to stop the run. Maybe he's just an extra guy, against like your Wisconsin or Northwestern, whoever maybe you get at the Big Ten title game. I don't know. I mean, sounds like he's athletic. I heard he's flying around on the practice field. So hopefully you hear something soon, so he can start getting reps with ones or twos.
Yeah, I think
that's ridiculous.
I think if we don't hear anything early this week, somebody from the athletic department needs to call somebody from the NCAA.
Like, come on.
Yeah. This is legitimately, if he would have done this a couple months later, there'd be no question.
I can't believe they can't, especially during the COVID year, you can't grandfather somebody in. How freaking ridiculous.
Of course, I mean, and for all we know, I mean, sometimes I don't trust Ohio State either. For all we know, that the waivers already been granted, and they're just
right. Yeah,
they're playing poor me.
Yeah, you never know with them. That's true.
And they have some wild packages already planned for him.
They's kind of taken the best of Urban and Trussell and run with it with some of those in some regards, when it comes to keeping things secretive.
Yeah. So no, and then some of the things, I mean, Cody Simon and Eichenberg things. From what I've been hearing about Eichenberg, I mean, like literally all these media guys, don't get upset at us when we talk about tough Portland, because it's all the good things about tough Portland. And, mean, but again, it's like a lot of this coaching staff's going to probably use him in a lot better positions. Like, you're not going to see him out there against teams that have athletic slots and stuff like that. But when you're playing Minnesota in the opening week, I've heard there's a good chance Eichenberg could play a lot, because, they're going to need.
Well, they're going to be stacking the box.
They're going to be playing more of a run stuff, from what we assume Minnesota will be, considering what they've got coming back in their offensive line and in their running back room, that, they're going to play a lot like how they played last year.
And I mean, word on the street is their top returning receiver. He had to leave the field helped off the field with a leg injury the other day during practice. So who knows what that turns out being. Yeah. But if they don't got anyone they can trust throwing the ball to, we might be seeing a heavy dose of run from Minnesota. Yeah.
And then, and it's Pele
Naoti.
Pele is good enough for me.
I think that's how I've heard it said. I've been practicing it, so I'm not fumbling over my words. So
yeah. No, we've been hearing a lot of good things. I mean, Al Washington had some glowing remarks about him, just how excited he is, and he's just a really, really just good player out there. And then when they asked him kind of about the waiver, he's like, well, we'll discuss that at a later time. That's why I'm kind of wondering, if has the waiver been granted? Do they know the waiver is going to be granted? They're just waiting for the paperwork to come through.
I just want the kid to play. I just want to hear it's official that, he's going to get to play this.
Yeah. But all right. So kind of talking about, so somebody asked him about the bullet. Does the bullet take away reps from some of these guys? And he kind of, he talked about this, and this is kind of when he talked about situational things. There's going to be a lot of different situations, and, a lot of just depending who's out there. I mean, even when, depending who there could be different style of bullets out there. And that's where I think when he talks about Kayvon Pope, that's where I'm thinking, I'm like, Kayvon Pope might be more of a bullet than anything else. He might be a bigger bullet that, that's covering a tight end or covering, a running back coming out of the backfield, or just going in to crush the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what he made it sound like. That, Kayvon's going to see the field. So,
yeah. And we've been hearing, from some of the media guys, we've been hearing that, right now in practice, it seems like they're blitzing a little bit more than even normal. So, that could be something that you never know. Some of these guys might be more blitz friendly. Linebackers. So it's just a lot of options.
Well, that's another scenario. You might get your best 3 blitzing linebackers on the field at a time. That you're going to come full house at somebody.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different things that are getting thrown out there right now. Washington didn't talk long. I think it was only like a 15-minute press conference, but it was pretty informational packed as much as any of these can be. I think he seems like he's pretty confident. It's just now it's time to keep on getting better every day and then see where they're at here at the end of it. He did mention a lot that, and they've talked about this before, that the Mike and Will is kind of interchangeable in a lot of ways. It seems like, he kind of said, hey, when he was talking about Mitchell and Gant, he's like, they kind of need to know how to play both because, they're basically in a lot of ways the same position, but they're different positions.
And they're going to be moving. There's going to be times that, only one's on the field and there's going to be someone else that's going to be in there at the Will position.
Yeah. And it was actually, it wasn't Washington. It was from, I think it was Combs last week. He kind of said that when they were kind of talking about all this rotational thing, and it was something that I've never really thought of before. It might've been, I think it was Combs. And I could be wrong. It might they've had so many different times when you think about guys have got caught into the wrong positions and stuff. So kind of by knowing different positions and knowing, different calls and stuff like that, if you get caught in the wrong position, that you might not be still out of the play. So, and I think that's kind of a good way to maybe teach some of these guys that, hey, know Mike and Will. So that way, if they do a motion and you're supposed to switch and you guys don't switch, at least you guys still know what you guys are supposed to be doing out there. So, I guess a different way of kind of looking at it.
Yeah. That's what I heard in the offseason was that kind of like Day's approach was kind of learn everything, even learn both sides of the ball. Like just so kind of what you're seeing, what's coming at you. Or if you're, like you said, if you're put in a position that you wouldn't regularly be in or not your actual position, you kind of still have an idea of like how to do so the offense isn't going to trick you,
Yeah. So we'll be talking more about linebackers next week when we kind of get into our breakdown of how we think the starters are going to go and all those different things and possible backups, and we'll maybe even look into a couple. I think maybe the formations that they could throw out there. All right, so Kevin Wilson, he talked to he is obviously offensive coordinator and tight ends coach. So he pretty much, we'll start with the tight ends aspect of it, and then we'll move into maybe the offense as a whole. Basically what he said on tight ends is that, a lot of people don't realize that it's one of the hardest groups to, train,
because you got to know a little bit of everything.
They're like, he's like, they're part left tackle and part wide receiver. So, which, obviously it's true. You're doing some stuff, you're doing line drills and then you're also doing receiving drills. So, it definitely seems like from what he's saying is, Kate Stover, he's Luke Farrell now. He's taken that position that I
can't wait to see that guy knock someone's head off.
He's the blocker. And, but he brought up a good point in it that he said that, there was points last year, he didn't even have to watch Luke as a coach, that Luke knew what he was doing. And, so that's different for him this year that, he has to make sure he's paying more attention to Cade because, he's raw, he's fresh, that, he doesn't necessarily know what he's doing in and out every play. So, interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Talked a lot about Joe Royer.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's always good to hear a young guy, being talked about that much. That just shows that there's trusted depth in the room, that he's actually a part of the conversation from, the tight ends coach. A lot of questions about G. Scott, of course, because that's just such an interesting development.
And I know we're not talking too much about the players in there, but just one thing that G. Scott mentioned and that you ended up telling me that. So, I didn't realize that, the Scott family and Richard Sherman were close. I guess his father and Richard Sherman are, pretty good friends. That it was actually Sherman's suggestion to move to tight end. So, and I've always said, I think that was a good idea when you talk about all the different possible moves that are happening here. When you think of Steele and all that other stuff, and and then of course, and I forgot, Al Washington did say some good things about Steele, but I guess we'll throw that in sometime next week too when we do that. But like G. Scott, he's looking bigger already. I mean, you can tell that.
Oh,
he's
yeah.
definitely. I mean,
It's
he's
that he's
obviously
put on like 15 pounds already.
I mean, he's obviously still around the 230 range. That I mean, he's wants to still be bigger, a little bit bigger as a tight end. But I mean, when you think about guys like the Pitts of the world, I mean, there's definitely a spot for G. Scott Jr.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a spot for him in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think, probably like some sort of hybrid role, but he'll probably be flexed out more than he's ever, hand in the dirt and on the line. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a role for him. He's already getting bigger, and that's just, I mean, you see it in today's college football, in the pros too. If you got a tight end like that, an actual like receiving tight end, that's such a mismatch. I mean, look at your Travis Kelce's. Even going back to, Gonzalez's, Gates, those guys, like that's just such a vital part of an offense.
Yeah. And Ryan Day is such a master, like, play caller. He knows how to do a lot of different things with the formations. I mean, I could really see, we're going to see some 12 personnel this year with both Ruckert and G. Scott on the field together.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be like, and then some linebacker, knowing that other teams are going to see that and be like, well, they're weaker on the line. Let's throw a blitz at them. And you're just going to have one of these tight ends fill that spot in right behind a blitzing linebacker.
Yep.
And that's going to be a quick pass open. And,
Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to that.
and then, so obviously we know we're with Ruckert. So, I mean, Wilson definitely seems like he's it's just pretty easy.
He's a good interview.
That he knows that he's got everything he needs with Ruckert, and Ruckert's going to be, he's there for him. He knows he's going to, anything that's thrown at him, he's going to catch. And,
and he just, I mean, you could tell he seems like he feels confident in Cade's ability to block. So you got a great blocking tight end that can do good things in short yardage plays, short routes. And then you have a just freak receiving tight end. So
yeah,
I think he seems excited, and, he said, Ruckert knows how to block now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And, I mean, he did bring, he's like, all these guys know how to block to a point. He's like, the things with tight ends is they're so, even guys like, G. Scott and Cade Stover, who didn't play tight end, he's like, they've been around the game of football for a long time now. They know schemes, they know different things. He's like, it's a lot easier to teach them than a lot of people think it is, because,
right.
They have a lot of the fundamentals down. And so, I mean, G. Scott knows how to block. So like,
right.
That maybe it's a little different of a blocking. I mean, you're going up against bigger guys and he's used to on the outside, but still.
That's why he's getting bigger, and he's working with Mick, and he'll be okay.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And I think that he's going to be used in some interesting situations this year where he'd be like, where he's just going to be basically a lot of weird ways that Ruckert is. I mean, Ruckert's much better all around, but I mean, they're just such mismatches. I mean, we saw that against Clemson. I mean, it's like,
and G's not as big, like he's not as tall as Jeremy, but but next year when Jeremy's off to the NFL, G. Scott might be able to fill in, that pass catching tight end that now you're losing. So
exactly,
you got a year to work with him, mold him, and then really, you unleash him, big time next year. But you're going to see some stuff out of him this year.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it.
Talking about on some of the, just kind of moving into the offense in general, talking about some of the rotation things that we just talked about. I mean, he literally said, he's like, we're kind of like 3 deep at running back, and, we're 6-7 deep at wide receiver. He's like, we're going to see a lot of guys coming in and out of the game. I mean, and I think that just kind of reiterates it, kind of like everything's kind of reading between the tea leaves have been this year, that they're really going to let a lot of these guys play this year.
They want fresh and fast. That's how they want to play.
And I think that's kind of, I think that's just going to be it's kind of an up tempo way without not being up tempo, that it's, because obviously when you're rotating guys, the other team gets to rotate guys too. So it's not a true up tempo, but it's like, we have so many different guys who can play a lot of different things. So yeah, try to keep up with us with rotating guys, but we're going to be able to get a formation going that's still going to screw you at the end of the day.
I mean, I think, obviously when you get to the end of the day, that Clemson's or Alabama's, this statement might not hold as much truth to when you're talking about like that caliber of opponent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the other team might be able to rotate guys in with you, but they're rotating in second and third stringers against just another group of first stringers, like how much does it really help them?
When you think about when you just talk about tight end. So imagine rotating a guy like G Scott in, and the defensive coordinator sees it on the other side. So you bring in an extra linebacker, and then G Scott goes.
But is the extra linebacker is he good enough to stay with G Scott?
And then they put G Scott out wide.
Right.
Like
I know. But yeah, so yeah, to a degree, like if you, like you're saying, it is kind of like a different way of up tempo that isn't up tempo, because they might be able to have, match personnel get fresh legs on there, but you might be talking about third stringers against a Emeka Egbuka, like, does it really help at the end of the day? You probably should just keep your first stringer out there.
Exactly. And, when you think about some of these receivers being rotated, they got Emeka Egbuka just rotated out for Jackson Smith. Well, and then like Garrett Wilson then motions into he goes into the slot, and Abuka's on the outside. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could play different things and force teams into without playing an up-tempo style, force them into making defensive mistakes, because, you just have way more talent than everybody else.
I mean, I'm not going to quote this perfectly, but it's kind of like at the end of Ghostbusters when they have to pick the form of the destroyer, that's like, how do you want to get killed by Ohio State?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it looks right now. I mean, we'll see in a couple weeks what it looks like on the field.
But I just thought that was an interesting statement by him, that he said that, hey, we got 3 guys that are going at running back. We got 6-7 wide receivers, which definitely makes you, we talked about this when we talked about Ballard, that, it really does seem like Ballard's really into discussion points right now, that
I'm sure he is,
that they're kind of comfortable maybe rotating him in, which is even crazier to think that, I mean, if they go 7 deep at receiver.
Yeah, I know. Wow.
And, you're going to get at least, I mean, it would be interesting to see how Royer comes on. If he keeps, it seems like they like what they're seeing. I mean, from what he's talked about, but they're going to put Scott out there just because it does create some matchup issues in different spots. But so they're definitely going 3 deep at the tight end. And
yep. So, and Mitch Rossi, I mean, walk on, he's been looking great from what I hear.
Yeah. And then, somebody asked him about the quarterbacks, and he just said, hey, you got a really, I think he said it was a really nice car you get to drive. So
yep.
It's basically just getting them ready to drive it, and then you're going to get a fancy car.
You get a Lamborghini, you just, you got to be able to drive it.
Yeah. Learn how to drive fast, just don't wreck it.
Yep. Exactly.
And then kind of then mixing him into then Stud's interview. So, there's been a lot of talk about the line that we'll break this line down here also, that so Dwan
Jones
is playing right tackle in a lot of the formations, and they've moved Munford down from left tackle to left guard, and they've moved MPF over to left tackle, and Paris is at right guard, and you got Harry in the middle. So 4 tackles and Harry, and that sounds like a new movie that we could come up with.
And Harry was always a big, strong guy too. I believe he played tackle in high school.
Oh my God, I mean, we just talked about this. I mean, big he's looking.
Harry Miller looks like a monster right now. Who said that? Who said that's like going against the Monstars?
It was
Taraja.
Yeah, Taraja.
Yeah,
as a which I laughed. But yeah, so I mean, it's good seeing. It was actually very good seeing Harry. I mean, he looks fully healthy for, he had all that shoulder he had to rehab and stuff like that. He wasn't himself last year, and and the injury, COVID, all that stuff. It just, then he looking big and strong and powerful. It sounds like he's having a hell of a camp. It also sounds like
Luke Whippler's having a hell of a camp too.
And I think that's part of it. And Stud talks about this. And like when they asked Stud, and I thought it was a good thing. And Stud doesn't like he's not the biggest talker in the world, so he's always out there the shortest out of the bunch,
right? Yeah.
And, so I mean, he has a pitch count. So I think of that
Stud's not really he's not into the press conferences.
but he literally said, so they're like, somebody asked him, is it just DeJuan's being really good right now, or is it that the other guys behind him are just not? And he's like, no, I have 10 guys. He's like Luke and Donovan Jackson and the Fryer. I mean, these guys are all pushing for starting spots right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of pushing.
Enoch Vanahi,
there's a lot of pushing going on behind these guys. And I think that's part of the reason why they are playing so good. Some of these things that are being talked about is coming out is because they're getting really pushed from the guys behind them. And that competition always breeds better football.
Oh, absolutely.
When you got somebody that's really barking at your heels, then that makes you play better because
you want to keep them off the field.
A coach is going to see that, been like, why play Harry if Luke's better than him? I can start Luke.
And we didn't even talk about Matt Jones and all this.
Yeah. And it sounds like he's now it sounds like he's getting, Day said at the beginning of the thing, he has to be more consistent. It sounds like he's getting his consistency issues, that he's looking really good. So, I mean, I just think that, Thayer talked about this, and then Stud also talked about Thayer talking to him about this, that basically, he talked to DeJuan and said, hey, because it sounded like DeJuan was a little upset that Thayer decided to come back. And yeah, I understand that. It puts another, you're now another year, you figure this guy's going to the NFL and I'm going to have a shot. But, now you got another year where you possibly understand him. Thayer kind of told him, which is, kudos to Thayer. They're like, hey, prove to me you deserve to be on that field, and I'll consider moving down to left. I'll consider moving down to guard.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a big statement from somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be a very high draft pick at tackle. But at the same time, Stud is correct when he talks about that, the NFL, they are looking for guys that could play a lot of different positions.
Right.
And you're only traveling with 7-8 guys on an NFL offensive line.
Right. So exactly. Yeah.
That now you
got to know how to do everything.
You got a guy that can play both tackle and guard. I mean, that helps you out tremendously.
You're more valuable to that team. Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't even speak to honestly, Paris Johnson though, because he's probably, you speculate, you think he might even be the best tackle out of the entire lot, and he's staying at guard too. Thayer's going to move in so they could get another big body on that line that can do well. But Paris Johnson, he's not going to be the first guy out there to go to tackle. It's amazing some of the sacrifice these guys are making, and what this line will end up being because of that.
And I don't have the quote in front of me, but Paris did make some sort of comment, basically this week, when you trust in your other guys and you trust in all the process and stuff, you're okay making those types of sacrifices. Right. And, they're all brothers out there. And that, it's some very encouraging, mature speaking that's going on in that offensive line room. And that's why I think why this year, and might be bias, scarlet and gray glasses, all that stuff right now. But that's why I just think that they're just going to be, until they get to the playoffs, they're just going to be almost impossible to beat, because this offensive line and the defensive line too, it's just, lines are the glue of everything.
Right.
Everything's won in the trenches. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And these guys are going to keep the quarterbacks upright. They're going to open up huge holes for the running backs. They're going to create a lot of opportunity, this offensive line. And after listening to Stud, and when he said that I have legitimately 10 guys, he said he feels his entire second team could go start most any place. So that's a lot of, that's not coach speak. That is literally,
it's true.
Coaches are always coaches always try to downplay stuff when, we could get better and all that. That's coach speaking, and then kind of throwing out, this they stop themselves when they talk up too much. Ryan Day's a master of that. When you see the glow come in his eye, and then he quickly stops himself. He's like, "But we gotta get better."
Yeah, and with Stud, he talked about Paris Johnson, that he got sliding down to guard. He got that now pad level. He understands all of it. That he's already mastered being guard. And honestly, what I find fascinating about this move is you have two tackles that didn't give up a sack last season that are now lined up on your left side of your offensive line. So blind side completely blocked, secured. Then you got 2 tackles that I don't even know how many times Stud used the words dominate and destroy came out of his mouth to now describe the right side of his offensive line.
Yeah.
And let's just face it. I mean, the smartest dude on the planet is your center right now. So
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. And
it's a freaking dream offensive line, and they're huge. Like,
I mean, Dwan Jones, and Stud talks about him. I mean, like he said that, hey, dude he just was never there mentally to play this.
He wasn't a football guy. He was a basketball player.
Guy. And which crazy to think that he was such a great basketball player was how big he was.
6'8", 400 pounds.
Yeah, he was a 400 pounder. I mean, he's down to 370 now and and moving well. I mean, he always
moved well.
Athletic. I mean, but he's looking like, I've never seen a 370 pound man that looks kind of I'm like, he don't look like he's 370 pounds. And, and James Laurinaitis, he brought up on his radio show this week. It's like a really good point. It's like, gone are the days that, you have bellies hanging over belts.
Right. Yeah. I know. And that's like a fascinating thing too. Like just, if you looked at the last decade, just the difference of what offensive linemen look like now, like,
I didn't.
And I realize still like guys like Joe Thomas still lose a ton of weight after they're done playing.
Yeah.
And they're down to like 250 or maybe even less than that. But these guys carry 300 plus pounds so well.
You know what they all look like? And granted, he is a lot taller. They all look like a bunch of how Shaquille O'Neal was built when he was in his prime.
Oh, absolutely.
When he was just like, he was 300 something, like low 300s, but he looked like
250.
He looked like just a wall. Like,
but Shaq was, he's a freak of a man.
He had a few more inches where he held it too, but he was a big dude. He wasn't skinny looking like what you would think of, like, even Yao Ming, some of those big centers, skinnier, but that was just
a few more inches. 6'5" up to 7'1", 7'2".
Well, Dewan's 6'7", 6'8".
He's 6'8". Dewan's legitimately huge.
He don't look like, but like what I was going to say when he say,
he is Thanos.
Gone are the day, bellies hanging over belts. Like, and, I didn't have any, I had some, like when I played high school football, we had my high school football, we had some good lines.
Yeah, you had a big line too.
But we were fat guys for the most part. These guys don't look fat.
No. Well, that's.
And I'm sorry for overweight people. I'm one of them. Like,
we both are. You can see us. So, but no, that's the evolution of just the sport. These guys are 300 pounds and they carry it so well. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And when you saw some of the videos, when they did that pizza video that came out yesterday,
they still eat.
Yeah, it's like a Dwight. When I saw him, I'm like, man, you don't look like he's 370 pounds though. Like,
but he likes meat lovers, man.
Whatever.
He doesn't.
I'm really excited because if Dewan works out, Jesus, like,
oh, I know,
like. But how do you even get around that guy? Like,
well, they brought that up because they said, Dewan, he's cracking your line when you have, pun not intended, studs on your offensive line. And you got Kayvon Thibodeau coming up in, week number 2. And he said, guys can't get around him. Like, he's doing very well in pass rush. You can't get around him. You can't get through him. And he said straight up, like, I see the defensive ends that he goes against. Yeah. I'll take him against anybody in the country.
Yeah.
My guys go against the best defensive line day in, day out. Yeah. Like, I'll take them against any defensive lineman.
We'll definitely see. Minnesota has a big time defensive end too. So we'll definitely see early, how good this line is. Cause Dewan's going to get challenged. That's where
they'll go after him.
Thibodeau is going to be on that side of the line. And like,
I would expect
you're not going to be putting him up against MPF and Munford. Cause even, depending on the down blocking thing, if MPF gets blown out, if Munford can see it, he can step back and,
seal from the back end. Yeah.
So like they're going to challenge the one side. And
I would think so.
So, we'll see where it's at. It's just very happy about the possibilities. I love the hope to think about what that is. Cause then it sounds like what they got behind these guys that, there's going to be, it could be very tough for a lot of teams that they play this year, because I mean they've had one of the best offensive lines in football the last 2 years. So
you know what I think kind of some of this is? I think Ryan Day kind of, I mean, I know his team wasn't full strength, his defensive line wasn't full strength, but I think he got a little beat up against enormous offensive line in the national championship game, and I think he saw some value in that and wanted to see how he could do that also, that, you know, make the hardest possible line for people to get through.
we've always said Ryan Day is he's a learner.
He's a sponge, man.
He's not a
he's still a new coach too, so he doesn't have a lot of bad habits.
I mean, and I'm not just the one thing I really love about Ryan Day right now is, like you said, he's a sponge. That he just seems like that he doesn't have too big of an ego, and that's hard sometimes for those coaches. I mean, you know,
It kind of reminds you a lot of younger Urban, where like he always tried to keep evolving his team.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And to a point, kind of same with Tressel. And a lot of times when they're younger, you know, they see a lot of when they get a little older and they get established, then maybe they're not as involving as much as they should. But, you know, because they take their skill sets, they know what their skill set is.
Right.
And I'll beat you with my guys. You know, I don't care. I can play my formations, and my guys are just better than your guys. And, you know, and I just right now, Day's not showing any of that. It's like he knows he's got the best guys on the field, but he has no problem out scheming the crap out of you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and, you know, coming up with different things like, yeah, I know I have the best, maybe the best seven out of the probably top 20. I mean, all 7 of our receivers may be the best 20 in the top 20 in the conference. I mean, like,
yeah, and that's not a joke either.
So
I mean, that's serious.
And especially the starting 3 are probably top 5. I mean, I think Jay Anderson is that good, and you know,
I think he will be, sure.
So, and then when you talk about, so I think he's kind of doing the same. He knows he can't be rotating offensive linemen like that, but hey, if I can have a great starting offensive line, and if it could be these 5 guys, and I could put a great 5 guys in behind him. And then the great thing about that with injuries, how one of these guys, and when you know multiple positions, if one of these guys get injured, you move in the best next guy off that, because, you know, say it's MPF that gets injured, Dwan, I mean, knock on wood, you know, I don't want it, but, you know, maybe that next guy up is, you know, well, I can move Thayer back down.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that would be the move. You can move Thayer back to tackle.
And I have, you know, now 3 guys that could come in and play at that guard position. And, you know, there's just so many different options you can do. And that was like last year, if you really think about it, and there's, you know, this seems like so gimmicky to me when I first heard about this line. I'm just like, and I think Tim May said it. And then I really started like understanding it at that point. It's like, I don't know. I hope they're ready for it. And I was telling you kind of privately, like, I hope they're ready for it. I'm like, I don't want them to get like too weird about things. Like, don't overthink stuff. And then like, who's the guy they brought in last year when they needed to bring a guy in? It was Paris Johnson. He's like, you know, they just threw a tackle in there. And then I kind of thought about it as like, yeah, that's kind of how they treat it. It's not necessarily the backups. It's the 6th man.
I mean, as long as it's not center, you know, Paris Johnson's probably your most talented lineman that you have on your team.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of it started really making sense to me then. And if Dwan, and I've heard 2 guys, I heard Thayer and Stud talk about that, you know, and Kevin Wilson kind of mentioned it too, that, you know, he's really progressing that. So
I'm excited to see it. And
Oh,
you
me
know
too.
what? If you're having trouble with it working, if Dwan's struggling against the speed rushes or whatever it may be, guess what? You can always move MPF back to right tackle, and you can move Thayer back out to left tackle. You got Matt Jones as a guard.
Yeah, Matt Jones.
You got Paris Johnson, Fryer, Enoch Vanahi. You got Whippler, Miller.
You know, Whippler, Miller.
There's so many things you can do. That line is safe.
I mean, if they think, I mean, it sounds like everybody is pretty gung ho about Whippler at center. I mean, so you move Harry Miller back to guard. I mean, there's exactly. There's so many different possibilities that they can still
Big
do.
Thanos becomes a goal line tight end. Like, holy crap. You got so much you can do.
Well, that's kind of what I thought when I first heard about this. I'm like, are they just like, I'm like, is this kind of when they're in like goal line situations, they're just going to have a monster big beef all tackle line? And then I'm like, I'm kind of behind this now. If it works, if Dwan's ready, if Dwan can handle those first 2 weeks, the speed rush coming at him from, you know, Thibodeau, and I can't remember the Minnesota guy. I just know that and Bruce Feldman's 101 freaks. He's on that list, and fairly decent number up in the list too. That I mean, these guys, if he can handle those two, then there's not going to be nothing after that.
Well, and then,
and he's only going to get better as the year goes on.
Penn State always has a good defensive end.
But by the time they play,
the time you're 2 months into the season.
Yeah. And I know Michigan's got some good defensive linemen.
Now you're 3 months into the season.
So yeah, he'll be even more ready by then. If he gets through those first 2 weeks, there's going to be no problem with this line going forward. It's just going to be just health.
I feel like that's correct statement. Yes.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Yeah. All right. So it was fun getting through those. So defensive line. I mean, we got to pick our 4 guys that we think are going to be pretty much the main rotational guys.
And then we're going to hear next week that it's an all defensive end line that they're doing this year.
Well, they've already,
hell though, it could be. You never know.
I think this is kind of, kind of getting off topic and going back, but this is kind of a good thing to kind of bring this point up. I think a lot of the transition we're seeing in a lot of these position groups, it's kind of the Rushman thought process of how can we do
your best guys?
How can we do the Rushman but do it at linebacker?
Right.
How can we do the Rushman and do it in the secondary, like
offensive line?
Offensive line, and it's like how can we kind of take that philosophy in situational spots?
Right. My guys are too good to keep off the field when, especially on these pass rushing down or passing downs, and they just kind of like they evolve that to their entire team. Like. Yeah. Let's get the best guys on the field. Yeah, they can learn what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we'll just talk we're just 2 defensive ends, 2 defensive tackles.
Like who do you think,
they still do a base defensive line.
I know their defensive ends still run like 3 deep.
I mean, even though we're hearing now, there's might be at times that they're running 2 up defensive linemen and 3 down defensive linemen.
Right, 5 across. Yeah, you're gonna have 2 edge rushers, and then you're gonna essentially have 3 tackles. But 2 of those are gonna be, defensive ends. You're gonna get your 2 probably biggest ones, Zach Harrison and JT Tumalau, or whomever. I mean, Noah Potter, JT Tumalau, whatever. I mean, they got so many people to go with, and then you're gonna have Haskell Garrett lined up straight up on the center. So everyone's going to have an assignment on the offensive line, and then who knows, you probably blitz a freaking linebacker behind them or something. Whatever you got to do, or one of those guys will be good enough to win their one-on-one.
So when you think about a bullet, they have a bullet. So basically, all you're doing there is you're taking one of the 2 linebackers off the field. It would be done in a passing down. It's kind of like a Rushman formation. So you're taking a linebacker off the field, you still have your bullet out there, you still have your other linebacker out there, and you have 5 defensive backs out there, and then you got
get to the quarterback quick,
defensive backs, so
get to the QB quick, make a mistake, and bad pass, so pick off.
4 defensive backs, a bullet, a linebacker, and 5 defensive linemen. I mean, all right, so
we'll say who we think are going to be the 4 down linemen to start off the year.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 ends, 2 tackles. Again, just like always, your breakout player definitely could be someone else. I mean, we all know who's on the team. So, and then we'll have an MVP of the group.
All right. Defensive ends. Let's start with that.
Starting defensive ends for me, I got to go Zach Harrison, Tyreek Smith. They're both proven.
Definitely that's the 2 that are going to start. We know there's going to be some heavy rotation. There's going to be even more heavy rotations with, Friday's injury. But it'll be nice to see maybe in the back how guys like Noah Potter, which you're starting to hear some things about.
At both though, tackle and
that, are they that some of these other guys might be stepping up, because I think they would definitely like 6 in that. And we're hearing a lot of good things about Baptiste and obviously the 2 freshmen. It's like every day the practice reports something about one of those 2, if not both of them, are being mentioned. So
and then you got 2 Hamiltons, you got Darian with Henry Young, you got McCow and McKenzie, or Cow and McKenzie. So they got so many guys there and a lot of those guys are kind of like, they could be a 3 tech or they could be an end.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
I agree with you on that. What do you think defensive tackle?
All right. So until I hear differently, I got to go with, who I believe would be the starter. But I know there's like Jaron Cage. There's a lot of stuff up in the air right now that they think, was he hurt? Was he the guy in that JT2 Malau video that you saw with the sling on when he was dancing around? I did hear, he was just on the stationary bike the other day in practice. So I'm going to say he's your nose tackle. Haskell Garrett's your starting defensive tackle. Now, I'll say though, or your 3 tech, excuse me. If Cage is hurt though, I think they trust Antoine Jackson to be a starter, but I'm going to say then it's Taron Vincent and Haskell Garrett.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on your starters. I really think the 2 freshmen are really the Williams.
Heard great things, and Mike Hall.
Yeah, Mike Hall are really pushing, and like it's hard at this thing because I really think they want to get a real rotation. So I think you're right. And I would be a little different as Cage is injured. I think they're going to try Jackson out first.
Yeah.
And then because I think they want Vincent in as a rotational guy at the 3 technique to kind of start developing a rotation there to really keep those guys, just healthy and just keep moving them in and out. So I think that will be my caveat. I think they will try, if Jaron Cage is injured, I think they'll try Antoine Jackson because I think he's probably behind Cage.
I think so. Yeah.
So that's what I would say on that. All right. So who's your breakout guy who you think is going to be just a guy that's just out of nowhere?
I don't know if it's necessarily out of nowhere. He's just not going to be a starter. So I'm going to say Jack Sawyer. I think Jack Sawyer has a real possibility that he'll lead the team in sacks.
Yeah. I was really contemplating going with them. I'm going to go with 2 guys just to be a little different. First, I'm going to say Mike Hall. I think just hearing a lot of great things. I think they could push to be a starter, but I don't think he will. But I think he's going to be one of the year that they had both Landers and Hamilton, and they were just sometimes it was just like it didn't matter which one of them was in there. They were always in the quarterback's face.
And Jay Sean Cornell was always there too.
And that I think he's going to be one of those guys. The other one I think is going to be Baptiste. I really do. I think this is his year to shine, and that he's not going to be one of the 2 starters, but he's going to be heavy on the rotation. And I like what I'm seeing. There's the size of him right now, and that it seems like he's not losing any of his speed. He always had his speed, and it's just now it seems like he has the body to go with it. And I believe was he COVID or injuries last year, or both? I mean.
I think it was a mix of both. I think I know Friday was hurt last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think with him though, last year it was that weird year that you didn't get a lot.
So I'm gonna say Baptiste. I think that Sawyer. I was really saying Sawyer, but there's parts of me that still think JTT. I mean, you're sharing so many good things about him. I don't think he's gonna be like Sawyer breakout, but it's gonna be like, my God, I can't wait to see this guy get a full season with Mick type breakout. Where
right.
you're going to see some flashes of him. Like, oh my God, what's this guy going to be like?
Well, I mean, I heard his bull rush is just already like top on the team. So I know he doesn't have all the moves of Sawyer already, but I mean, the guy, there's going to be times that he's going to come in against, like garbage time against someone's 3rd string tackle or something. And he's just going to make him look silly. He's going to put him in the quarterback's lap. If I had to say a second breakout, I would say Taron Vincent.
Yeah,
I think he's gonna finally be a huge contributor on the line.
I think we're going to see so much from that 3 technique that it's going to be just like, it's going to feel like, and I'm farting on his name right now. The guy that from a couple years ago from St. Ignatius,
3 tech, Draymond Jones.
Draymond Jones. I think they're going to both be. I mean, Draymond Jones was such a freak that last year he was there that I think both. It's like going to be like Draymond Jones in there all the time, but it's just
or Adolphus Washington.
It's going to be, but Mike it's going to be just a mixture of 2 of them. And just good luck blocking either Haskell or Taron.
Our line's going to be very difficult to block, and I think they're going to get home a lot more this season. So
your MVP.
I'm struggling with this one. I think I have to go Zach Harrison as my MVP. We talked about how much of a raw project he was, and he still had like 4 sacks as a true freshman.
And then he had a COVID season. And then he had the crazy season.
But I mean, last year, even with the COVID season, though, like he got past a lot of a lot of tackles. Just they were having so much trouble, him and Tyreek, actually like getting home to the quarterback, getting those sacks that we are so accustomed to seeing from the Ohio State defensive ends. But I think this year, he has another offseason with Larry Johnson. The guy looks absolutely jacked like none other. And I just think that this will be kind of like, I know Chase, his sophomore year, Chase Young and like Joey Bosa, they had put it together maybe more so than Harrison did, but they were also probably starting off further along than what Harrison did. So I think, this year with Larry Johnson, I think it's all going to click. I think he probably leads the team in sacks, even though I said Sawyer definitely has a legitimate shot to do it. But yeah, I'm going to go Zach Harrison's going to be my MVP.
I mean, I would be.
I think Tyreek Smith will be 1B for me, though.
I would say I would be a little bit different. I'm going to say Tyreek, but just piggybacking off yours to Zach is that I think with Zach, it could be that he is kind of what we saw from you just said his name,
Chase Young.
Chase Young. Sorry, Braveheart. Who absolutely crushed
Cam Newton, man.
Yeah.
Did you see that move? I mean, holy crap. Like,
did you see what Cam said at the end of
he was smaller than I thought. He was like, I'm joking. But yeah, not to interrupt you too much. Did that tackle even touch Chase Young on that play? I mean, it looked like they're about to engage and then he just dipped under him. And
yeah, that was like an El Matador.
Oh my gosh. And that's why you go play for Larry Johnson.
So Chase Young, his sophomore year, it was that Penn State game where like really like he seemed like he put it. I mean, and I know he was hurt. He was hurt. He had hurt. He relied a lot on Nick Bosa early in the season. Then there was kind of like a couple games in there after Nick Bosa got hurt that, Chase wasn't, I think he needed to step up to be that next guy. And it took him a couple of games.
And if he didn't have 2 sprained ankles, who knows what that year could have been? I mean, we saw how much of a freak Chase Young was.
But after the Penn State game, it was like, then he was the freak.
Yeah.
And then you saw him after then the whole next year. So it was like, I think that could be Zach Harrison that, he was that raw talent his freshman year. Last year was just, there were some obstacles in the way last year, and now it's
no one got to play a full season, and especially Ohio State didn't get to play a full season.
So now he's ready to go. I'm going to say, just to be different, Tyreek Smith. Because Tyreek Smith's always the last 2 seasons, there's always been those glimpses of like what
he just can't get to the quarterback,
what he's going to be, and I think that will be this year because I think there's going to be a little bit more attention put on to Zach Harrison from the opposing team.
I could see that
Tyreek Smith's just going to be free coming at the quarterback, and when he gets to the quarterback, he gets to the quarterback hard. It's just sometimes he has the hard time getting there. But I mean, we saw him against Trevor Lawrence, and he was like playing lights out that night. And then
I mean, he got a sack over Jackson Carman, right?
Yeah, that guy. So I mean, the defensive line, it's same different year, same thing. Like it's just that Larry Johnson, man, just keeps on. I hope that guy stays forever.
So real quick, and I know we're talking about the linebackers next week. Defensive line against the run, as good as always. Do you miss Tommy a bunch this year? Do you think they've not necessarily ever had a nose tackle as talented as Tommy Togiai, and they've seemed to figure out how to stop the run. So
they've always stopped. There's been very few years when I will say the years Ohio State's not good at stopping the run, you're getting a bad defense. Like that was it the 2018 that they had a bunch.
They always gave up like an 80-yard touchdown run that year,
and it was like so those.
That was a rough year.
Yeah, if. You just never see Ohio State giving up tons of rush yards. I mean,
no, you don't.
And I mean, within rare exceptions, Najee had a good game. There was a lot of other things that, even though he likes to say he didn't have, he was beat up some. He did have.
He looked good. Yeah.
So he was. They're going to be fine against the run. And I think a lot of that raw talent in there, they have a lot of raw talent in the defensive tackle room. And if those guys are ready to play, they'll be fine against the run.
Do you think they scheme up too much to stop the run?
At times I
Is
do.
that a conversation for another day?
At times I do, but at times I also think that's Buckeye fans thinking that they do.
Yeah.
That I think that they've had plenty. I think they have a lot of confidence in a lot of times in their back seven that, I mean, they've had great linebackers over the year. I mean, everybody likes to pick and point out certain years that's this team did this and that team did that. Well, I mean, yeah, teams that use tight ends have hurt them in the past. Well, guess what? If more teams use tight ends, you would see there's a lot of teams.
Right.
I would love to see Alabama's linebackers against teams that use tight ends more.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I get it.
you don't see it that much anymore. And yeah, Iowa killed them that year because they're like, we have 3 really good tight ends, and Ohio State really hasn't played a tight end all season. So let's just do that against them. Doesn't mean we should lose by 30 points to Iowa, but
Never. That should never happen.
But there's other issues with that. I'm just saying. I think sometimes people think that we're too heavy against the run, where we should be. And like, we have really good secondary guys for the most part. And
Right.
and we can't take anything we saw last year defensively until I see it this year with a full season, a full practice. Then I can't take anything I saw last year as a legitimate thing.
Yeah.
Because they went so vanilla in so many spots last year because they had no choices. They had so many injuries and so many COVID issues.
Yep. I agree.
All right. So let's we'll get on out of there with that, I think.
All right. Well, everybody, I hope I can get this up by 1, but if not, then this will be in the past or whatever. But watch Justin Fields' first game today. Preseason, but that dude's going to be electric. He's going to be amazing in the NFL.
Maybe if we find time over the next couple of weeks, we'll talk about, especially if the Bears hadn't named him the starter yet, we'll be talking about how Nagy might get fired if he doesn't put him in over Dalton, because it seems like there's a lot of mood in the locker room that Justin Fields is the better of the 2 quarterbacks and he should be the starter.
I read something that kind of makes sense. So you got Aaron Donald in your first 4 weeks. You got the Cleveland Browns within your first 4 weeks. Maybe let him start the second half of the season.
Maybe that's a thing. Maybe let him take his lumps.
Yeah. He took plenty in college, so he'll be fine.
He's a learner. So
he's a gamer, man. All right. Well, thank you everyone for stopping out today at the Buckeye Bar. I'm John.
And I'm Mike.
OH.
IO.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Buckeye Bar Guys on Buckeye Bar Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that all notifications bell so you see when new content is added. And please remember to like and share so we can grow our audience. Don't be afraid to comment. We want to know what you're thinking, and we want to know what content to add for you guys. OH.
IO.